Is this a surprise?
Yeah, huge surprise. I mean, an incredible comeback when you think about it. I mean, if you think back to the summer of 2011, during the height of the phone hacking crisis, everyone was saying James Murdoch is done. You know, whatever else happens, and there were so many dire predictions back then about what was going to happen to the whole company, and at the very least, people thought, well, this is going to be, you know, damaging to James. He's never going to be able to take over for his father, and here we are. You know, 4 years later, and James has managed to come back.
We did get a hint, though, over time, that this might be the direction of things because James was brought back to New York and made co-COO with Chase Carey.
Right.
Who's probably on the outs now.
Yeah, I mean, the rehabilitation has been going on for years now, so it has been a gradual comeback. And yeah, Chase Carey is probably, that's a big loss for the company, if in fact.
Chase Carey with the mustache, of course, James Murdoch on the other side.
On the right, there again on the right of his father, and Lachlan on the left. Any sense of what this means for strategy? Do we know anything about what direction James might take the company in?
Well,
I think more of the Rupert agenda.
Hey, well, Rupert is still co-executive chairman with Lachlan. It's still Rupert's baby.
Rupert will still be doing the heavy lifting. I guess the question is what happens to the newspapers that, you know, Rupert was so devoted to.
Yeah.
And over the years, people have always thought, well, James is not a newspaper guy. What's going to happen to, you know, the print side of the empire once he takes over?
Well, they've already split it up.
Right. Yeah.
That's what happened in the fallout of the hacking scandal.
Right.
They split up the print assets from the 21st Century Fox and the more money-making entertainment assets.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I think for the short term, with Rupert still there, I think the biggest short-term loss would be, you know, Chase Carey moving on. I mean, he's hugely respected.
Although
TV.
Agreed, absolutely. And quite frankly, I thought we would have seen a bigger market reaction to the impact of a Chase Carey, in theory, leaving here, and when we're not. Fox shares are down 12 cents, and it's a $33 stock, pretty much.
What do we know about James's track record? I remember he was at B-Sky B.
Right. Well, he was on, you know, he was sort of the golden child in the family. He'd been, you know, on a hot streak and been doing great up until the phone hacking crisis. And the irony there, of course, is that he really didn't want to have, you know, anything to do with the tabloid part of the empire, and yet that was what almost took him down and ended his career. But yeah, on the B-Sky B side, in terms of his understanding of the television business, which is basically, you know, the heart of the profits in the whole empire at this point, he's had a very strong track record in the past, and it is really remarkable. You know, the Murdoch trait of sort of being an escape artist and managing to survive even the most unsurvivable of situations. And,
do we still feel about it that way, though? Do we look back at the phone hacking scandal? Clearly, that's what it seemed like at the time.
Right.
Looking back on it now, knowing what we know, should we have viewed it through that lens at that time?
I still think it's pretty remarkable, you know, the job they did in terms of getting out from under that. I mean, it did look so bad at the time.
Well, yes,
although
but
so many people have been
some
cleared.
investigations have demonstrated that there wasn't as much guilt to go around as was initially speculated.
Right.
For example, Rebecca Brooks. I mean, I was living in England at the time covering the scandal day in, day out. A lot of the people accused in that trial were cleared.
Right. And also the fact that, you know, the other tabloids and other media companies in the market were doing similar things. I think also
almost as sleazy.
Helped them out also.
Any idea what this means for Lachlan or Elizabeth, the other siblings?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it sounds like Lachlan is going to be kept in the fold.
And that's Lachlan on the left.
Right.
Okay.
And of course, Elizabeth also, in terms of the TV side, has had her moments, you know, for a long time. Right after the phone hacking crisis, everyone was saying, well, maybe it's Elizabeth's time. So
because the old Fox had gone back and bought her company. News Corp, had gone back and bought her production company, Shine, that she started, ran independently, and she was brought back into the family fold.
You know, the siblings, she had the most success in terms of outside of the empire, in terms of on her own.
Well, at least success that we could judge. Right. Much harder to know how. Presumably, James is an effective executive. I've spent some time with him, but not enough to know what he's like to work with, what he's like to work for.
I mean, the time I've met him, his reputation is very hard to read. He holds his cards very close to his vest. He's, not the most convivial, warm, outgoing guy. He's, much more cautious than his father, which you could argue is a pretty good thing.
I don't know. I mean, throwing caution to the wind has served Rupert Murdoch pretty well, don't you think?
Yeah, that's true.
Currently, he is co-COO with Chase Carey, who's also CEO. Is there a role for Chase Carey when James becomes CEO?
I think in the interim, definitely. But, yeah, I think Chase probably would like to run something himself. So,
he leaves.
I think he leaves, and there are probably other opportunities out there. While this is all happening, just across the way, what's happening with Viacom? What's going to happen with Sumner Redstone? Who's going to take over that empire?
Surely Les Moonves, no?
Well, Chase could also be a pretty good candidate, so there's, a possibility there. Yeah.
It really is an extraordinary mustache.
Phenomenal.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
What does it mean for Roger Ailes?
Roger, he has his, Fox News, and that's his power center, and no one's going to get him out of there in the short term. Of course, there was all this, years ago, going back, there's been, question about the siblings being embarrassed about Fox News and upset with, Roger, and that played out briefly in the press with Elizabeth's husband, Matthew Freud, criticizing Fox publicly, which at the time was a huge deal. But throughout all of that, Roger has just such an incredible grip on that part of the empire and makes so much money for them. So I don't see him relinquishing that.
And again, so long as he's in Rupert's good books.
Yeah.
And Rupert is the executive chairman.
Right. And there's other things to fix before
executive chairman, not just chairman of the board, executive chairman.
Right.
Yeah.